Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of I Never Knew But My Dog Did podcast. I am Maureen Scanlon, your host and life coach Maureen, as most of you know me. So, as usual, as per usual, I have a fantastic guest today. You know the saying, Jack of all trades, master of none? Well, today we have Tyler of all trades, master of all. He is, I told him off air, I feel like we're kindred spirits because I myself have 5 businesses. I have ADHD or ADD, and I have to be creative all the time and changing my hobbies, every month. So I read your story. I went to your website and I'm like, oh yeah, this is my guy. Like, I get this. This is completely, we're in alignment today. So listeners, let me tell you about my guest, Tyler Wittkofsky. He is a storyteller from the charming southern coast of North Carolina. He said it is chilly there today, but life has not always been smooth sailing for him. And the reason that, of course, we have guests on is we talk about that struggle that we have, that we overcome. But he's so creative and so I just love how well-rounded he is. So he is a mental health advocate, as I am. And he does this he has a blog with his wife, Grace, and his dogs, Dutch and Belle, whom we're going to talk about. Dutch saved his life in his darkest moment, such as my dogs did. So his blog is Adventure with Coffee. He also has a podcast. He's the co-host of Cook the Books, which I freaking love the name of that. He also has Tea with Coffee Media, his indie publishing company. He also writes romance novels, and he wrote the most recent one is called Not Alone, and we're going to give you the website. He has a free ebook download for you guys, and that's based on a true story. Also, he writes poetry. Coffee, Alcohol, and Heartbreak is his poetic journey through 4 transformative years. I mean, I could go on and on. He's won awards. He's just absolutely fantastic, but we're not going to keep talking about that. We're going to meet the man himself. So good morning, Tyler, and welcome to I Never Knew. How are you?
Good morning, Maureen. I'm great. I am excited to be here and energized. Had a couple cups of coffee and a Red Bull today to make sure I was keeping up with your energy.
I was just going to say, listeners, there's nothing better than not only the coffee, but adding the Red Bull in there to make sure, you can handle all of this. I always say I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but I go well with cookies. So yeah, first thing in the morning, who wants a mundane, monotonous conversation? We want energy. So Tyler, here on I Never Knew, what we do is we start with your knee story, that moment where you were on your knees and you just realized, man, it's just not working. My life is not working. I'm doing the insanity cycle. Things have to change. And it could be many knee stories, of course, but tell us about where the moment for you in your life said, things have to go differently for me.
I think the most recent knee moment for me was we lost my brother-in-law a couple years ago in a car accident. And he was very carefree, had like no cares about anything, lived his life to the fullest. And before he passed away, I was very white collar, did the whole corporate America job, and worked 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, and just lived that mundane, boring life. And whenever he passed away, it was like a wake up call. I was like, life's too short. He was only a year older than me. And I was like, life's too short to sit here and waste my life away doing something that makes me miserable, because it honestly did. My mental health was in the trash can, and there was there was just no hope. I felt like I was stuck. And after he passed away, I was like, I've got to do something different. And that's whenever I figured out that I wanted to focus on my writing, to focus on Tea with Coffee Media, to focus on my creativity. And I took that as an opportunity to live for him, to live vicariously and be that spirit of him and be able to carry on his legacy and his funness that he brought to the world.
What a wonderful legacy he left, and how he changed the trajectory of your life by leaving, that spirit of, life is too short, it needs to be lived. And I think we all have been there, or some of us are still there with the someday mentality. I as well was in corporate, and it was soul sucking. It really was. I was working for someone else, and nothing was freedom for me, and nothing was a choice for me. And so I feel you on that. You just, it drains your mental health. So I just love that so much. Bless your brother-in-law. I just think it's beautiful that he's still with you, and he's giving you all of this, a different life, a beautiful life. So I love that. Now you talk about how you had a history of addiction as well. Tell us about that, and tell us, when was that moment for you where you knew this wasn't going to work, and how did it change your life?
Back in college, throughout high school, I was very straight and narrow. I didn't touch cigarettes, I didn't touch alcohol, I didn't touch drugs, none of that. Once I graduated high school, I had kind of went off the deep end. I moved out of my mom's house, and I was 18 years old exploring the world for the first time, and I came across drugs and alcohol and cigarettes and got addicted to all of them. I was working in restaurants at the time, as most high school kids or college kids do to make their way through life. And I fell into that soul sucking realm of addiction and found alcohol and drugs and started turning to pills to kill the pain. I felt alone, and part of that was being out of my mom's house. I had pushed my family away because of some childhood trauma, and I blamed them for it. And it was one night I was drinking and doing some pills, and I just decided I was going to kill myself. I took quite a few pills and called my best friend and told him, I said, "Hey, I'm going to kill myself today." And he said, "No, no, 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 you're not." And I hung up the phone. And I laid in bed, and he called me 10 times, and I just ignored it every time. And finally, the phone stopped ringing, and I laid there and, slowly felt myself fading out. And my phone rang again. And I looked over, and it wasn't him. It was a number I didn't recognize. And something said, "Okay, well, I'm going to answer it." I answered it, and it was my best friend's dad. And me and him had a very long talk, and he ended it by saying he was a mechanic, or his father, sorry, was a mechanic by trade, and he spent a lot of time, working in the shop with his dad. And he told me, he said, one thing that we learned, or that my dad taught me, was if the wrench isn't broken, you keep on turning it. And that was really an eye-awakening moment, or an eye-opening moment for me, because I was like, you know what? That's right. My wrench isn't broken. I've got to keep turning it until it does break. And I'm not going to be the one that snaps it over my knee and breaks it. I'm going to be the one that breaks it by turning it, by trying, by forcing it. And, that was really a transformative moment in my life, because it made me realize that suicide wasn't the answer. And that is a very hard thing to learn. And I still have suicidal thoughts at times. They don't go away, but the tendencies and the actions, they can go away. And I've pushed those away and haven't had a suicidal tendency in years. I've been, like I said, I mean, I have the thoughts where I'm driving down the road and I'm like, I wonder what would happen if I just ran off the road, or I wonder what would happen if I drowned, or something like that. And it's a scary thing to deal with, but I think having that memory of, and my best friend's dad actually passed away about a year after that moment. And so it was hard to lose him, because now I don't have him to kind of lean on. But I do lean on his words, and if I'm going through a hard time, I think about that story he told me, and I tell myself my wrench isn't broken yet.
I love that so much. I had to write that down. That's such a beautiful thing to say where we think we're at the end and we're not at the end. And it's amazing how just someone can say something so profound. And it's why I always tell everyone reach out to someone when you're in that moment, as hard as that is, and feeling alone. Just like your book indicates, we're not alone, but it's so hard in that moment. Um, and anyone who's been there, I myself, I was going through a divorce, mother of, three children, a young baby, 10 months at the time, and then two daughters that were 6 and 8. And I had those suicidal thoughts one night, and my son would sleep through the night, no problem. This particular night he woke up, and usually I'd give him a bottle and put him back down. For some reason, and I know this, I always tell my son, you saved me. I took him out of the crib and I put him in my room. And I remember his little face looking at me like I was the entire world. I was the sun, and the moon to this little baby. And it hit me. I was like, there is no one that will ever love this kid the way that I do. No one will love him. He's a piece of me. I can't leave this world. And as much as I felt like a failure as a mom, and the divorce, the family breaking up, I knew my wrench wasn't broken either. I just had to get through it. And that going through the weed part is the ugliest part. But look at the beauty on the other side. And that's the hope that we give to everyone. So I always encourage, because this community is about mental health advocating and helping, call 988, guys. If you feel that way, reach out to a family member, a loved one, send a text, whatever, a stranger, I don't even care, go online. So thank you for so much for sharing that. My gosh. So then you decide, okay, this you get through your suicidal ideation, and it isn't like, oh yeah, I just decided I'm not going to be suicidal anymore. Like you said, it's a daily struggle. Mental health,
Yeah.
struggles are real and every day, no matter how much we positive think it away, it doesn't happen that way. So tell us about some of your mental health struggles and how you've learned coping mechanisms. I believe your creativity is really such a wonderful outlet for you, but what is the main thing that helps you cope with your mental health issues?
My main thing for coping is sensory therapy, which I actually taught to my therapist. She wasn't sure what it was. And I don't even know if it's a real thing. I just kind of started calling it sensory therapy, and that's what I've rolled with. So maybe I made it up, maybe it is a real thing. But what I like to do is rely on my senses. Rely on my sense of smell, my sense of touch, my sense of seeing and taste and hearing, by using things like candles or air diffusers to bring me back, calm me down. Lavender is a great calming tool. Eucalyptus is a great calming tool. But not only using things like that, but using things like candles that are grandma's cookies that bring me back to grandma's house when she was baking cookies or brownies for me and my brother. Being able to transport myself to those safe memories, those safe places whenever I'm struggling. Same thing with your sense of touch. I've got a squishmallow. I'm not afraid to admit that, but sometimes it just feels good to grab something and squeeze it as hard as you can, up to your chest. I love my wife to death, but I feel like if I just went and grabbed her and bear hugged her as tight as I could, it might hurt her. So, using the squishmallow is my way to get past that. Plus, it's nice and soft. Um,
Yeah,
and then
absolutely.
things like music to transport you back to a better time. I love listening to music from my high school days to transport me back to when things were simpler. And I think about, sitting on the bus, listening to music and just jamming out with my friends. Um, Taste is also a really good one. I lost my grandfather a couple months ago to cancer, and he used to make me deer and squirrel and all kinds of wild game like that. So now anytime that I taste something like that, any kind of wild game, I think about him. So I'll get like wild game meat sticks and just have those to whenever I'm going through a stressful moment, I'll munch on one of those and think about what he would say at that moment, what he would tell me when I'm struggling, because he always had a way to really push me through it. And aside from sensory therapy, my support system is amazing. My mom, my brother, my wife, my grandmother, my late grandfather, they've all been key pivotal pieces of my life. My best friend Matt, my best friend Taylor, they've also been great support systems and haven't ever let me down. They've always been there to support me. And I've got a great support system. And I think most of us do have a really good support system that we have to either find or open our eyes to see, because it was hard for me to see my support system a lot in the beginning. I was still thinking that I was alone. I mean, there was even a moment in my life where I had these intrusive thoughts that told me that my family was going to send me to the hospital, and lock me away for, as long as it took to quote unquote cure me. And I had this paranoid thought and locked myself in my room one day and wouldn't let anybody in there. I was so terrified that they were going to try to take me away. And, finally, my best friend Taylor at the time got in there and she was talking to me, and, she talked me off the deep end. She was able to bring me back to reality and tell and remind me that I was loved, and it wasn't that they were going to take me away, that they were just worried about me because they knew, I was struggling. And it was not that they were annoyed, it was that they were worried. So, we've all got at least one or two people in our life who are, a good support system. We've just got to open our eyes and let them in, because I know one thing I did was I shut them out a lot. I still do that to this day. If I start to slip into a dark moment, I'll start to shut people out. But luckily, my support system has learned those signs. And, that's another thing that I like to do is, if I see any kind of article on the mighty or on Facebook or anything like that that I relate to, I'll send it to my friends and my family and say, hey, check this out. This perfectly describes, this is something I've been trying to tell you that I haven't been able to find the words for, and this person figured it out. So being able to help them understand and realize what you're going through helps them better support you and be able to be there for you.
Oh my gosh, yeah. All of that is so good. And your sensory therapy, and I'll just tell you this as a master life coach, some of the things that I help people through, depression, anxiety, panic attacks. The sensory therapy is a distraction method that we use. So I'll tell my clients, when they're in a panic attack or they're in that anxiety moment, I'll say, take a pen, use all your senses. Think of, what does it feel like in my hand? What does it look like? What would it taste like if I licked it? Because what you're doing is, it's a mental escape, where before you would do addiction, you would have, people escape with food and other whatever methods that you have. So you're right. And then the other part is NLP. So neuro linguistic programming is being able to tell your mind, stop, don't go there, don't go down that rabbit hole. And then you picture a stop sign, and then you take what was in your mind and you make it smaller. Literally visualize making that problem, that feeling, that moment, just minimize it. We don't tuck it away and hide from it, but we just make it smaller. And then we just stop, and then we do our breathing, or we do our meditation, or I think music is so much more powerful than anything else in this world. Because think of it, when you listen to lyrics or music, someone has been there the way you have. And I always think of that when I hear lyrics. I'm like, oh, they get it. You
Hmm.
sending that article to your family, I think that's fantastic. I do that with my husband. I'll send these TikToks. There's this couple in Australia, she's ADHD, and the husband's not, and it's really hilarious because they the way that she behaves, and he's watching her, but he gets her. I'll send it to my husband. He's like, oh my gosh, that's you. And it helps him understand me better. And that's all. The people around us that love us and care about us, that's all they want, is to
Hmm.
understand us and to help us through it. Now, if there's any listeners listening and you don't have a circle or you don't have a support system, this is where I think social media is helpful. There are groups that can help you. I have mindfulness and positivity group on Facebook where anyone who ever needs to reach out, we're there. We have positive interaction, something positive on the internet. And then I do believe in therapy and life coaching, because sometimes you don't really want your family's opinions because you feel like they know me so well, they're not helpful. And I know what they're going to say anyway. So sometimes having that third party that doesn't know you or the history, but just talks to you and lets you have this safe space to say whatever it is you need to say, is very helpful. I think it's beneficial. I know that, people's lives have been changed through my coaching. So I love everything that you just said, and that's going to be so helpful to listeners to take that, go back in your mind to the happy moments, go back to, I love the food thing because I'm the same way. If I'm missing my grandmother, I'll make her tuna salad. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I'm connected to her. So let's talk about also all the creative outlets, because that to me is a big deal. We've got to have somewhere for our emotions to go in a positive way. So, should we start with your poetry, your podcast, your blog? I mean, my gosh, where do we even start with you? Because how cool is that? You changed, pursued a dream, and it just keeps growing. So, wherever you want to start, let's start there.
Yeah, let's start from the beginning. So my poetry, which was actually the second book I released, was written between 2012 and 2014, or 2016, sorry. But before I was diagnosed, and then right after I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder and generalized anxiety and depression.
Mhm.
Um, it was my way of coping with these feelings that I had no idea what they were about. This was after, um, or right around, some of it was during the time I was battling addiction. Some of it was after I had kind of cleaned up after the talk with my best friend's dad. But these were all raw, true poems from my soul. Um, I had a most of them were written in my phone in the notes section on my iPhone, and they stayed there for years until 2020, whenever I finally decided, I was like, hey, I'm going to publish this thing. So I did. I put them into a book, and I didn't have them edited. And some people were like, oh, well, you should have had them edited. And I'm like, no, because for me, these poems are raw, true emotions, and whatever it says is how it's supposed to read. I truly believe I put it in there for a reason. I wrote it like I did for a reason, and that's how it's going to stay. And I stylize certain things certain ways to leave little messages throughout the book that I just didn't feel like an editor would be able to, do anything with. So I didn't have it edited. I just formatted it and did the cover design and released it. But prior to releasing that, I had actually taken on a challenge from my grandmother. Me and my wife moved in with my grandma and grandpa for a couple months while we were waiting on our house to be built. And she asked me one day, because my grandmother was a high school English teacher and later my elementary school principal. So I spent a lot of time in the school system with my grandma, whether it was at her high school or at, my elementary school. And back then we didn't have iPads, we didn't have computers that we could play on or games or anything like that. So it was all about using your imagination and pen and paper and creating these cool little stories. So I used to write little stories for her or draw comic books and leave it on her desk for her, and she loved it. She would encourage me to keep writing, and she loved all of my stories. She would read everything. But one day she asked me while I was living with her, she says, are you still writing? And I confessed to her. I was like, no, mama, the biggest thing is I got burnout from writing, from, being in school and college and having to write all these technical papers and things like that, that I just kind of lost my love for writing. And she said, well, how about you write me something? I said, okay, I can do that. Why not? She's my grandma, and it's she whatever grandma says goes. So I I set out to figure out what I was going to write for her. And one day I used to be very ashamed of my mental illness. I didn't tell a lot of people. It was a big secret for me and my family. Um, not that my family was ashamed of it, but they grew up, of course, my mom and my grandma and my grandfather grew up in an era where mental illness was looked down on. They never treated me any differently. They loved me all the same, but they still felt like maybe it was something I should keep to myself. But whenever I came out about it, they definitely supported me. But that's another story. Um, my I had this idea about writing a mental health based story, and I said, okay, I'm gonna name it Not Alone, and it's gonna be based on things that have actually happened to me through my life. And I had never planned on publishing it. I was gonna write it and show it to my grandma and some of my friends and family and just show them my story, people who knew about my mental illness.
Mm.
And I finished it in 3 months. And I started sharing it with people, and they loved it. And my best friend Taylor, she told me, she's like, you need to publish this book. She's like, this book has changed my life. You have really made an impact on me. She even got a tattoo of the name of the book on her wrist to, yeah. So she has, a perpetual reminder on her body that she's not alone. And that's how much the book meant to her. So I finally said, you know what? I'm going to publish it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to step up and, make this dream a reality. So I published the book in 2019 and had a couple local news articles published about it. And at that point, my battle with mental illness was a public battle with mental illness, and people who, I was still doing the corporate thing in 2019. It wasn't until 2021 that I left, or 2020 that I left, but I was still doing the corporate thing and, published my book, and I was afraid because I didn't know how it would affect me professionally.
Yeah.
But I turned out to have a lot of support from my coworkers, and from the general public because I was in a very public facing position at the time. So I kind of fell in love with writing again. And I finally, the next year I published my poetry collection. And then after that, I wrote the first book of the Sunflower Kisses series, which is a romance series about a mentally ill young man who falls in love with a girl that lives 3.5 hours away, and it goes through their long distance relationship and the struggles they face and the obstacles they overcome, and how his mental illness impacts their relationship, and how she learns about his mental illness and slowly becomes an advocate beside him. So after that, I took a little bit of a break from writing novels and released a couple short stories that were featured in the anthologies by Creative James Media, Bag of Bones Press, Inked in Gray, and just wanted to take a break from writing full length novels, published those. And then this year, I actually released two books. I released Potent, the first of the Enamored Echo series, which is a modern day retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream. And then I re released Not Alone as the second edition. It is now a full length novel. It was a novella when it first came out, and now it's a full length novel. You can still get the novella by signing up for my newsletter on my website, but it is not available for purchase anymore. However, the second edition is. It just explores a little bit more of the emotional depth of the characters and goes into, I use some things that I've learned over the past 4 or 5 years of my writing career to really make it a better story. Um, Right now, actually, 2 days ago, I finished a story called The Principal's Principles, which was about my grandmother being the first female principal in a rural county in the late 80s. So it goes through, it's loosely based on her, not a true story, but goes through this young woman's battle with anxiety and battle with discrimination and overcoming those obstacles. And it's actually the grandmother from Not Alone. All of my books have a connection to Not Alone, some little some little Easter egg in there leads back to Not Alone. So I did that. Um, but yeah, that one I just finished, and then this is NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month, and I have a goal to finish the second book of the Sunflower Kisses series by the end of November.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And that's hard. That's hard to do because I mean, I just published my third book and it's pressure, pressure when you do that. And that's the whole thing. Everyone's heard me say this. I refused to write unless I felt good about writing it. So I never got writer's block because I wanted it to be so authentically joyful that it came
Yes.
across in my writings. I love all of that. I love that you have Grace, Dutch, and Belle. And of course, since we are, I never knew, but my dog did. Tell us what Dutch knew that got you through your darkest moments.
So back in 2016, 2017, I had just started my new job with the local government. I was the public information officer for a local government organization, and I was young. I was 23 at the time. I had taken on a lot of responsibility, got thrown into a political battle, um, and I had just been diagnosed about a year ago, 2 years ago. So I was still learning the navigation of taking my medicine like I should and how serious that was because whenever I first got on medication, I was like, I don't need this and I don't really have to take it. I'll just take it my bad days. And so of course that made things worse because the even the good days turned out to be bad days whenever you're not on your medicine. And it
Yeah.
just kind of sent me into a downward spiral. But there was an election, and the results of the election didn't exactly go a way that favored my position. And my position got a lot harder. It became under a lot more scrutiny. And we decided to adopt a dog after on January 1st of 2017, and we found this dog at the Brunswick County Animal Shelter. And something about him just stood out. My wife is actually the one who picked him out. She was like, he's the one. And I said, well, let's go look at other dogs first. And I looked at this dog and I'm like, he's cute, but let's see what else they got. And so we did, there was nothing else that really stuck out to us. So we went back and got him, and we went into, they had a little room that you could introduce yourself to the dog to see if he got along with you. And we sat there and he came right up to me and sat in my lap. And the lady said, she's like, he's never done that with anybody else. He's never been so not timid around anybody. So we got him. And it turned out that while we were getting him, I had pneumonia, um, walking pneumonia, which turned out to be pneumonia in both of my lungs. And I was very sick for a couple of weeks, had to stay out of work, and Dutch stayed with me in my room the entire time. He never left my side. I would get up to go. I was smoking cigarettes at the time, so being stupid, I went outside and smoked a cigarette while I had pneumonia and fed him, and then we would go back in and lay down, and he just stayed by my side. Whenever I got over pneumonia, I got bronchitis. So I had bronchitis for about a week. After I got over bronchitis, I had strep throat. After I got over strep throat, I had the flu. So for about 2 months, I was out of work sick. And Dutch stayed there with me the entire time, making sure I was okay. He was the reason that I kept going because I tell people all the time, my body, I was in such a bad place mentally. Number one, from not taking my medicine regularly. Number two, from the stress at work. And, it was a time where my suicidal tendencies were starting to come back, where I started thinking more about, hey, this is how I could do it. This is how I'm going to do it. And every day I woke up, I got up out of bed because he needed me to feed him. He needed to go to the bathroom. I didn't care about myself. I didn't. I could have stayed in bed and starved and thirsted to death for all I cared, but I wasn't going to do that to him. He caused me to get up. And he never some dogs are very needy and they'll lick you and paw at you until you get up and take them out. He never did that. He never peed in my room, never pooped in my room. He would sit there and um, wait until he woke up or wait until I woke up. And the boy saved my life because he gave me a reason to wake up every day. He gave me a reason to keep going. My wife and I were together at the time. We were just dating at the time whenever we got him, but she was going away to school 4 hours away. So she couldn't be there. She wasn't my reason for waking up because she was so far away. So Dutch replaced her in a sense, to give me that hope and that care and that guidance that I was loved and that people, not even people, but just the world, something about the world relied on me, and that was Dutch. And that boy has been my savior in more than one ways. And now we've got Belle. She's my little cuddle buddy. She anytime I'm having a bad day, she'll come up and she'll lay and cuddle up with me, and she licks my eyeballs. It's really weird, but I let her do it because I'm like, you know what? Life's too short not to let the dog enjoy doing whatever she enjoys doing. My life's short, but her life is shorter. So lick my eyes if you want to.
Oh my
um,
God, that is amazing. My daughter lets her dog lick her nose, and I'm like, ah,
yeah.
but yeah, you are absolutely right. This warms my heart because this is where everything that I do comes in. My dog is more enlightened than me, and my dog is my relationship coach, are my two books. And that's exactly how my story went, was coming out of these abusive relationships and finally just saying, oh my gosh, I've got to change something. My niece story was stop being in a relationship from 18 years old to 45. And finally, I decided I need to be alone, but it was hard to really sit there by myself, journal, and really do that shadow work of what the hell is wrong with me. And my dogs did the same thing. Just I had an Australian Shepherd who passed away last year in December, and then I had my Chihuahua who would just sit on that bed and look at me like I'm their entire world. And it's so cool because I don't care what anybody says, a dog picks you. You do
Hmm.
not pick a dog picks you. Dutch picked you. And like you said, that unconditional love is they're going to meet you wherever you are. If you want to lay down, if you're sick, your mental health overspilled into your immunity being so low that these consistent illnesses just kept popping up. Obviously we know medication for mental health is not an as needed basis. It's an everyday thing. We have to build it
Yes.
up in our systems, as well as some of the lifestyle eating and all that fun stuff that we talk about here on I Never Knew. But it just warms my heart because isn't it amazing that dogs and animal, even cats, I have a kitty too that I absolutely love, but any pet is, they say more to us without speaking than anybody in our lives. I can talk to my grandson. My 16-year-old grandson lives with me, so the bond with you and your grandma just warms me because I have that with my grandson. um and it's just amazing. I could life coach him to death, or I could lecture him to death, but the dogs, the way that they communicate, if we took more cues from them, just if I just hugged my grandson and quit talking half the time, it would really translate a lot better. So I love dog story. So the poetry book, Coffee, Alcohol, and Heartbreak, is all of that available on Amazon or through your website? Okay, so all of that's available on Amazon. So
Yep. And
I
my website,
okay.
most major retailers like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, uh, Waterstones in the UK, and Indigo in Canada. Um, Coffee, Alcohol, and Heartbreak is actually only an ebook right now. We're working on reformatting it, adding in custom sketches and things like that to go with each poem. So, but yeah, the rest of them, like I said earlier, the not first edition of Not Alone is only available through a newsletter sign up on my website. But everything else you can buy on my website or pretty much anywhere on the internet that sells books.
Awesome. And I'm gonna have all of your links online, guys. That's Tyler Wittkofsky.com. I'm not even going to try to help make you spell that. I'll do that. But I am saying it well, right?
Yes, you were doing
Okay.
good.
So this is kind of cool for me is I think, first of all, the opportunity that we can all self-publish now, more people can get their books out, more people can share their message with the world. That has changed. I love this is kind of cool as you were talking about these amazing, like, potent, and then how you're releasing as the second edition of Not Alone. I just think it's so cool. A romance novel that has the mental health issue in it. I recently just did a podcast with a guest named Mark Cheverton, and he wrote 27 books for children 7 to 13 that deals with anxiety and their action adventure. And I just wrote a book for babies, little guys 0 to 6, on mindfulness and by
Nice.
following what our dogs do. And then I see you doing a romance. I'm like, how freaking cool is this? I can't help but be so psyched about this. We can integrate real life into these beautiful creative outlets. That's why I feel that kindred spirit with you, because we can do it where it's such a positive influence on the world. These messages need to get out. Now, talking about messages getting out, you also have this PR and marketing and publishing company. So tell us, I know you're just everything, so much, everything. Every time I turn around, there's something else you're doing. So tell me how that's going, how that benefits getting our messages out. Cause I think I probably need some PR and marketing help. I'm not a salesy girl. So um, tell us about that portion.
Yeah, so I graduated from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, with my degree in marketing, and later again with my master's, my MBA with a concentration in business analytics. So I've won several awards for my marketing and communications work, and finally decided that, I needed a little bit of an extra income stream because I'm paying for everything through Tea with Coffee Media comes out of my pocket. I pay for it with my money. I haven't taken a dime from the company yet. My staff and my authors get paid before I do. I just want to make sure that my community, my little family that I've built is taken care of. But with the Wittkofsky company, I started it as, a side venture to do some freelancing and some marketing and public relations on the side, and started picking up some doing some pro bono work for churches and other nonprofits. And eventually I got an opportunity now to work with another PR firm jointly with through the Wittkofsky company called Catchphrase PR, and they're a great company. They do a lot of schools and educational services, which I love. I started my career out in education. So I love the realm of marketing communications because there's so much creativity that goes with it, but it's like an art and a science put together because marketing isn't a magic trick. It doesn't just happen. It's a science experiment. We create this hypothesis, we test this hypothesis, we redo the experiment, we have a control, we do tests. So there's just so much that goes into marketing. I enjoyed science without enjoying science. Like I enjoyed the testing and the blowing stuff up and the doing cool things, and not the learning the table of elements or anything like that. But with marketing, I loved everything about marketing, and it felt like science in a sense because I had the chance to come up with these crazy ideas of what might work and what might not work, and put it to the test and see what was working. So being able to do that full time has been really great. Tea with Coffee Media, my publishing company, I started off my journey back in 2019 self-publishing, and I realized from that point that number one, it was very expensive if you wanted to, have somebody else do your editing, formatting, cover design, things like that. Lucky for me, I had a background in graphic design, so I was able to design my own cover and do the formatting. And I did have to pay for an editor, but had a friend edit it and it was a lot cheaper. but I got out there and published my book, and I was like, wow, that was hard. I mean, and it's easier now to self-publish than it used to be, but it's still hard to publish a book. I mean, to write a book, to format a book, to edit a book, to do the cover, to do the marketing, that's hard.
Yeah.
And I started to join these online blogs, or these online magazines like the Dark and Veil Universe and Rewritten Realms, which were fantasy magazines that took characters from history and mythology and put them in the modern world. And what I learned was that there were so many talented indie writers out there that weren't being published because number one, they didn't have the following on social media that some people had. So they weren't getting the attention from these publishers. And number two, they didn't have the funds to be able to afford a editor or a cover designer or a formatter for their self-published book. So they just didn't publish. They just wrote and said, maybe one day I'll get published. So I want it to be like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. And that's what I decided to do. I decided to go out there, create Tea with Coffee Media, a company that pays for these authors. We sign authors and we pay for their editing, we pay for their formatting, their cover design, their marketing services. We give them 2D videos and 3D anime or 3D figures and marketing and promotion and all kinds of things. And then even for authors who aren't signed by us who want to go a self-publishing route, they can still use our services at an affordable rate. Something that we are able to give them because we're not here to make money. We're here to help people. I never wanted to become rich. I just want to have enough money in my life to pay my bills and enjoy what I'm doing. I don't care if I'm on Forbes top 100 list or not. That's not my goal. My goal has always been to live a comfortable life, to be happy with my wife, and to get us to a point where neither one of us are having to work that 9 to 5 grind, that we're both getting to run our adventure blog, run Tea with Coffee Media, run the Wittkofsky Company, run TylerWittkofsky.com, and make money off of it. Be these content creators, these small influencers that are making just enough money to have fun and do things we enjoy. And like I said, I never wanted to be in the spotlight whenever I first started this. I never wanted to be on. I've been on 4 or 5 podcasts a month since June. So I've been slam packed, and I never expected to be in the spotlight or be the voice of a company or be the face of a generation. And I really wanted to stay simple, but here I am. And what I'm finding is I've got to do this. I've got to make this sacrifice to help all these people that are relying on me, all these authors, all these staff members, because for Tea with Coffee Media, we bring in a lot of younger, fresh out of college, give them a chance to earn some experience for their job. Our editors, our designers, our entire team is young, fresh out college, or just starting off in their field, and we're giving them opportunities. Same with our authors. I think um I'm trying to think. I think about 95% of our authors are debuted authors. They've never been published for self-published or traditionally published. None of our authors have been traditionally published before. Only a handful have been self-published. So I'm making people's dreams become a reality. Our motto at Tea with Coffee Media is dream, believe, create, achieve. And that's what I'm
Yes.
here to make our authors do. I want them to dream. I want them to create that dream, to believe in that dream, and to achieve that dream.
Ah, I love that. I just love you. You're just such an amazing man. And what I love is my mother said something to me, and when I was able to start doing exactly like you, just whatever I want, the freedom every day to do something I want. I always say everything that I do is a get to. This is a get to. I get to talk to you. I never cross paths with you where you are and me where I am. And this is always my get to. But my mother said, when you do what you love, you'll never work another day in your life. And I feel that way, like to the core. And the money, I'm like you, the money doesn't matter because that's not what I'm in it for. I'm in it for the change, the help, the the changing the world, the changing the people around me, the contributing to helping people have their best lives. And my motto with mine is be your own best friend. And I do this to be the voice my younger self needed. And I love that you and I are on that same page. And I love that you're saying, I want to give everyone a chance to realize their dream, and I'm there to support them. And I'm not about the money. Of course, we have to put, we have bills and we have to put food on the table. But my motto, why I'm not very salesy in marketing, is because build it and they will come, and it's come. It's amazing when you're just in that space of not focusing on, I need to be successful and I need to have titles and I need to have this huge bank account. No one writes a book for the bank account. If you do, you're going to be sadly mistaken, because you and I know those people on the New York best-selling list bought their way there. And
Yes.
not that they're not good books, but they bought their way there to get on that list. The amount of marketing and cost to get on that list. So when you see, listeners, when you see little old authors like myself and Tyler winning awards, that's a big deal, because we are not paying gobs to get awards. We're being recognized for our work on a much smaller level, but it's being appreciated because we're not forking out tens of thousands. Yeah, Kim Kardashian can put a book out there. First of all, it's a ghostwriter. Second of all, she's got a team that's like, hey, we'll get your book on the best-selling list.
Yeah.
But when you're little old self-published authors like us, and I use assisted publishing, which is very helpful for me because I'm not technology savvy. And so being able to do Amazon and all the technical stuff is not good for me. So for me, I love my publisher only because they make it so simple for me. And although I've learned not to do the marketing package. That wasn't successful for me. So I've learned to do my own. But what I love about you too is my daughter graduated with a PR and marketing degrees from Northern Arizona University. But now she had a baby, so she doesn't have time. She used to do my managing, and she does not have time with a new little baby. So we need to talk about marketing
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
your girl needs some help. But no, I just love this conversation. I love everything about you. I think you're just an amazing soul in this world, bringing so much light, and we need you. And we're so happy that your wrench did not stop turning, because you're needed. You're needed. And thank you, Dutch, for being there and letting your wrench is still turning, because I think the puppies are everything.
Yes.
So since we do talk about heavier stuff, I like to end the podcast with something a little bit lighter. And I have a little segment going right now called It Tastes Funny. And this segment is where I ask you, what is something that you like food wise that people would be like, not good, or something that you don't like that a lot of people do like? So what you got for me?
Okay, so I've got a couple. Um, First off, for our non-American listeners, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, but I've got a lot of friends who are from the UK, and every time I say that, they're like, "That's so weird. Why do you eat that? That's disgusting." So I think, for our non-American listeners, there's your weird for the day. For our American listeners, I love putting barbecue sauce on everything. I dip my onion rings in barbecue sauce. I put barbecue sauce on my sandwiches. One thing I love doing is getting like a club sandwich with turkey, some thick sliced turkey and ham and bacon and lettuce, and slapping on some mayonnaise and barbecue sauce on top of that. Um,
I
I
like
just,
it. I like
yeah,
it. I like it.
yeah,
I'm a real like dipper. Like
yes,
I love dips of any kind. Like I want to dip everything in everything. So I really like the barbecue. I never thought about the barbecue. My husband is like a spicy guy. So he wants everything, Tabasco. We found out we went to the hot sauce festival here in Austin, and
Oh, nice.
he got this habanero mayo that he now orders online, and they go through him and my grandson go through this like it's, water. It's unbelievable. So we're dippers. I bet you he would love the barbecue on the sandwich, and I just hadn't thought of it. A previous podcast guest said a peanut butter and bacon sandwich. And I'm like, I know, right?
So, there used to be a hot dog store and where in Leland, North Carolina, where I used to live before we went mobile in our RV. Um, and they had a peanut butter and jelly dog. So one day I love a peanut butter and bacon burger. Getting a hamburger with cheese and peanut butter layered on top and some thick slices of bacon. So one day I was like, it's good on a hamburger. I said, hey, can you put peanut butter and bacon on this hot dog? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, don't give me that look. You put peanut butter and jelly on a hot dog first off. So they put it on there, and then every time I came in, that's what I ordered. And I started ordering two of them, one for me and one for Dutch.
Love it so much. Oh my gosh. I think the peanut butter on the burger might take the it tastes funny cake for today. That is really, really awesome and interesting. But yeah, I'm down for trying just about anything. I don't think I'd do a peanut butter and jelly hot dog, but I do like the peanut butter and bacon idea. Just that saltiness. So, well,
Yes.
thank you, my friend, for what a wonderful conversation. Thank you for
Yes.
just being your authentic self. I'm really all about let's just have convo, and we did, and you met my energy. I'm so freaking thrilled about that. And hugs to Grace, Dutch, and Belle, for being so supportive. Thank you for advocating for mental health. Thank you for sharing all of your gifts with the world. And if I were your life coach, and I'm going to be for a moment, I'm going to say to you, when you said I never aimed to do this, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. And you're doing exactly what you were meant to do. What I tell everyone is nothing meant for you will ever miss you. And here we are. You are exactly
Right.
where you're supposed to be. And there's so much more to come for you. So thank you for being on, Tyler. Hang in with me. Listeners, I hope you really, really enjoyed this conversation. He is a creative dynamo. He is such a wonderful spirit, and you listen to his overcoming of his suicidal ideation, his mental health struggles. He can do it. You can do it as well. And please find that support group, that loving circle, as he talked about. You're always welcome to reach out to me. Of course, my life coaching, confidence coaching, couples coaching, dating coaching, all that fun stuff is lifecoachmaureen.com. And let's see what else we got going. Oh, of course, my books. My dog is more enlightened than I am, and my dog is my relationship coach. And now my children's book, My Dog Bexley is Just Like Me, for our little guys. And Christmas is coming up, so definitely order some of those for your little ones, and let's teach them some mindfulness so that when they're adults, we're not undoing anything. We are just building on the idea that they can love themselves and be their own best friend. Last but not least, we have an online doggy boutique where we make wholesome treats, only 3 ingredients: peanut butter, pumpkin, and oats. And our peanut butter has no xylitol, so it's safe. I also have some with CBD in them to calm down those hyper babies, as well as the older babies with some joint and arthritis pain. And each treat has 1 milligram of CBD in each treat. So we also have paw balm, we have apparel, I even have hats. We also now have healthy treats for kitties as well. So go to mydogiseverything.net and go order those. We'll get those shipped out to you within 24 hours. I love you all for being here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for growing this community. I just want to say this, and we're going to do a little clap session here. We have had more downloads than we have had. And, of course, we're only barely into our second year of doing the podcast, and it has grown by leaps and bounds, all 5 stars on Apple. we couldn't be more thrilled with the responses and the feedback that I get. So definitely give me that feedback. I will feature some of those reviews that you leave on social media. So definitely join me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So find me. Then we can all chit chat and get together. Thank you for growing the community. I love you all. And please make sure you take care of yourself, take care of each other. Most of all, please take care of those furry babies and be sure to adopt, don't shop, just like Tyler did when Dutch found him. So, love you all. Until next week. Mwah.